Welcome to another episode of Fireside Bricky. I'm sorry today is a day late. I actually have been doing a bit of travel again, most likely the last major bit of work travel for the rest of the year. I do have TwitchCon coming up in October down in the sunny San Diego area. And I actually do have another trip in December, but that's not work related. I'm actually flying out to Africa as I will be hiking Mount Kilimanjaro with my father. I'm shocked that man at 65 years old is hiking Mount Kilimanjaro, but he literally was doing it. And he was like, "Hey, son, you want to come?" And I'm like, "You know what, Dad? I think I do." And so, yeah, that's the only other major bits of traveling this year. Anyway, again, apologies for the one day late. I hope you've had a very solid week. I know it's been quite a bit of intrigue going on in not just the world, but also in the gaming world. Lots going on, lots coming out. And I've kind of detached myself a lot from social media. This is a whole Fireside Bricky episode that we can talk about at some point or another, but I haven't been on any social media outside of my own Discord. Or if I need to post something for, just to keep engagement up or whatever, but not like looking at stuff. And the only places I've been besides that is like the competitive Warhammer subreddit, because it's the only one that talks about like data slate changes and stuff. And that's about it. And so it's actually been kind of nice. It's weird. There's like this weird push and pull of wanting to stay informed while simultaneously knowing that it's bad for your mental health. There's a certain point that I have to kind of remind myself at, which is like social media is made by tech organizations to make money. And the way they do that is to intentionally show things that make you angry so that you can engage with it more often. Like, that is not some kind of conspiracy theory. That is a factual piece of objective evidence in the world of social media. And I think just the more you use it, the more you realize you become a more bitter person. So I've been a little bit detached lately, and I must say it's been quite good. So anyway, all of that aside, I have a question here that I think is actually a pretty good one. It comes from a longtime fan of the channel, Ridley, and it says, "Hi, Brick. Hope you're doing well. I struggle a lot with self-worth, particularly in regards to what I am, what I have, and in what situation I am in. I'm very privileged and have had it easy for most of my life, with, quote, real, unquote, hardships countable on one hand. I often think I don't deserve what I have, be it money, success in school/work, or my significant other. And in moments like this, I find myself gravitating towards the idea of giving it all away to someone who I think would actually need it instead of me, which is why I tend to spend decently sized amounts of money to other people that I could have saved up or put towards other uses." I also assume that the other people statement is regarding to, I'm assuming, various charities, but also as a fan of online content creators, donations, subscriptions, giving it away to other people in that method as well. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, as I am very conflicted about if what I'm doing is right or wrong. Less of a question, but still want to get off my chest. I appreciate that one a lot because I think it's one that I resonate with a lot. Because I myself have grown up incredibly well. I think it's something that people don't like to talk about. And I think it's something that I don't know. There's a phenomenon that's coming out a lot lately, and it hasn't been just like 2025. I feel like it's been like the last decade or so, where you almost wish you had a worse upbringing while simultaneously being the same person you are now, because then you can say, no, I deserved this. I deserve what I have because I struggled for it, or something of that nature. And while I'm not necessarily a psychiatrist, nor am I a philosopher, I have a couple thoughts on why this might be the case. Some of you who maybe study these things for school or something of the matter, I would love it if you would pitch in to this conversation, because I think it's a really fascinating one. It's almost like the romanticization of victimhood. I think that might be the words I can use for it. It's very buzzwordy sounding, but it might be about how I would describe it. I actually, so for myself, of course, I am a very fortunate individual. I grew up in a fantastic, I just had a fantastic life. I genuinely did. I grew up with two very loving parents who I see maybe like once a week. They are still together after like 30 something years. I have one sister, and me and her are on great terms. We have a very good, I mean, it's still like brother sister rivalry, don't get me wrong, but we're still super chill on that one. Watch the Hot Ones Bricky video on this channel if you want to see a bit more of that one. And then I grew up in Orange County, California, which is in one of the most wealthy countries in the world, the USA, in the wealthiest state in that country, California, in one of the wealthiest regions in that state, being Orange County. I'm sure San Francisco and LA are higher, but it's still very much up there. I grew up in a very good area. And granted, at the time, because I was born in 1995, I was raised very much like kind of like a middle class-ish area. I remember vividly, obviously the first few years of my life, I don't remember very well, but like around 5 to 10 years old is when we were struggling a lot more financially. Never poor, but like I would say like lower middle class, whatever you want to call that, kind of on the cusp. And then, or at least a bit more house poor. And then after that, after the 2008 recession, things actually started to get a little bit better. And I think the main reason for that is that we sold our house right before the recession hit. And so we were able to kind of help a lot in that way. And then my dad got a better job, and then from like my middle school to high school era, I was doing pretty well, pretty solid. And then from there, of course, I moved on into doing my various jobs, Dairy Queen, EMT, and then I became a YouTuber. And now I do very well financially myself. My father and my mother also started doing very well for themselves, roughly around the same time I did. The moment both of their kids left the house, they both started doing better as well financially. And so we're well off, absolutely. And I feel as if this is a taboo to discuss, and I don't know why. Because maybe it's just the simple fact that nowadays people feel like they need to suffer to earn. You need to suffer in order to say no, I earned this thing. Because in a sense, what I did, I'm a living proof of like the zip code tax bracket mentality. Like if you grow up in a certain tax bracket, the chance of you staying in that is substantially higher. Circles of poverty and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, for me, I am above said bracket now. Mostly. A lot of the money goes to the various projects, the Natura Pine Orchid 8. Like, I definitely am not going around with lots of spending money currently, but I live a good life. I think maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, I had a lot more going on because there was less like business building, if that makes sense. But I mean, I am living proof of that whole like tax bracket type thing, 100%. And I think what the main thing is that nowadays, especially with advent of the social media, and especially with stories of like underdog stories, media, that kind of thing, people want to feel like they don't want to. I think they just don't want to feel bad about wanting more. And I think this is something that a lot of people get a little bit weirded out about, which is just that the human brain will always want more. It's the hedonic treadmill, right? Once you earn a certain amount of cash, you almost feel like you want more cash. Or once you become, oh my God, the gym industry, like once you become really strong and lean, you're like, oh, I got to be stronger. I got to be bigger. I got to be leaner. And then you go down steroids and it's always fighting the next thing. It's always fighting the next big thing. And I think for the most part, a lot of people don't like to admit that they want more money. And I think, or they don't want to admit that they deserve. They want to say that they deserve something, and this is especially when it comes to money. I think a lot of people, they see the injustice going on today. They see the plight of so many people not only just in countries that they are not a part of, because I feel like this is certainly more related to like first world countries for the most part, not fully, but for the most part. And then they see the sheer level of injustice that the uber extremely wealthy has caused to so many other people. I mean, if I'm going to be perfectly honest, like, yeah, the effect that the general amount of high income billionaire people have done to the general populace of the world is a tangible and objective fact. Like that, the amount of stuff that has gone from there has made many people's lives worse. And I think people equate it a little bit too much and too similarly, where if they start doing well, if they start doing solid, if they start feeling like they have done well for themselves financially, for example, they are somehow becoming a part of this. They have become this issue. They have been part and parcel to the injustices in the world. Someone ends up getting, I don't know, a very, very fancy tech job and gets $300,000 a year and suddenly starts to get nervous and starts to sweat and feel as if they are also contributing to this major problem. When in reality, the truth is so far from it. Like if you were, like what do they say? What's the difference between a millionaire and a billionaire? And the answer is $1 billion, because the difference is 999 more of what you already have. Like the difference is huge. And I think it's something that I actually myself have struggled with every so often, is feeling that way, right? Feeling that same way. And then kind of having to have a little bit of a dose of reality hit me in the head again, I also feel like, especially for myself, I don't try to prey on the less fortunate. My job is mostly paid for by larger companies, ad revenue given to me by Google, or stuff from Amazon via Twitch, right? Don't get me wrong, the fan support is very, very strong, and I really appreciate it. But a lot of that comes from buying merchandise, giving subs, things like that on Twitch and those kinds of areas. And that kind of stuff, like that doesn't really prey on folks, right? That's very much a like, hey, here's this thing, purchase it if you like. I do my very best to give all of my employees good lives. They have benefits, they get a 401k. Even those who just like fold shirts, I try to do my best to do better than a lot of those folks do. And I think a lot of folks really end up getting to that point where they feel guilty. They feel guilty that they want this stuff. They feel guilty that they have this stuff. And because they feel guilty in that way, they end up kind of turning to finding reasons to explain it away, being like, well, yeah, but I struggled for it, oh, but yeah, but like I didn't grow up very well for it, or I really had to work hard for this thing because my childhood life wasn't very good, or I had an abusive father, or I had some real trauma growing up, or I just didn't know, like they feel this need to explain it away. It feels a lot better if you're ridiculously wealthy to say, yeah, but like I'm not like those people. I'm not like those people who just had it handed to them. Like I worked for it. Completely invalidating so many of like the importance of the fact that there's nothing wrong with just being a part of that, like having that stuff or doing well for yourself. Like I don't find myself guilty for being above my original growing up tax bracket, because like I know the hours I put into this. Is my job as hard as other jobs? Hell no. But I still put in effort for it, and there is a return on that effort. And so I don't feel bad about it for myself. I also know for a fact that I am nowhere near the size of so many other creators. And even those creators are magnitudes away from the general wealth that comes from real celebrities, right? Actual celebrities, and even those celebrities from tech giants. It's such a difference. And so I think there's that weird feeling that kind of catches into you where you feel like you just don't deserve it, right? Because the people who have what you have abuse it. The people who have that level of income, that bracket, that thing, you view it as an abusable type thing, and because you aren't like that, you feel weird about having it. I think this also kind of goes with terms. Like whenever I think about the phrase like rich, like, oh, you are rich. Like what? Like that is such a catch-all term. Rich can mean well above your means in the area you're currently living in. What I live in for Orange County could make you rich as all hell in suburban Michigan, or like rural Ohio, for example. That could be considered very rich. In fact, a lot of those areas dislike it. There's a lot of major tech companies that hire people remote from San Francisco or whatever, and those people end up living in Nashville, Tennessee, Bozeman, Montana. Originally, for a while, it was Austin, Texas, and then because they get paid so much more, it drives up the price of everything else. And I mean, that's a whole question that I don't know and I can't understand. I'm not someone who understands those things, but I'm aware of it, and that could be considered something rich. I mean, hell, a big streamer could be considered a very rich person. Like, you would call a huge streamer rich and simultaneously call someone like the big musician Eminem, we'll go with that, also rich, despite the fact that he probably has 100 times the income of them. But this catch-all term, it makes you feel kind of weird, right? It makes you feel kind of strange, because if you were called that for whatever reason, you think, oh, well, I'm not like them. How dare you use the same adjective that you use for Jeff Bezos? This horrible person who has caused so many issues for so many people. Like, how dare you lump me in with them, despite the fact that it's just the same catch-all phrase. Now, this is obviously all related to the financial aspect of it. It's the thing I think of the most, because I think it's the most tangible. The other things that were mentioned here, specifically on like success in school, work, significant other, that's a tough one. That's a tough one, because I hate to say it. I genuinely hate to say it. But sometimes you just need to sit down and realize that some people will just do better than others because of factors even outside of your control. There's an old talk about how luck plays a really big role in business, in a lot of business. And it's the same thing I say. Like, I talk to myself about how I'm here doing what I'm doing right now. And, was I lucky? Yeah, totally. Did I still work for it? Absolutely. Was the deck stacked in my favor? Absolutely as well. There's like the old, I forget exactly how it goes, but there's a very important nature in realizing that almost everything you do will have some kind of luck-based thing, because that's life. Life is nothing but luck. Up and down, because like just random chance encounters, random decision making that is built from just nature versus nurture. Like, that is just how almost all very successful people operate. But the weird thing is, the more you focus on that, the worse the outcome might end up being. You kind of have to have this weird level of like blissful ignorance, Because and you have to find a way to mix the two of them. I'm sure there's someone in the viewership right now, someone in the comment section that is very popular in like a tech job, or they landed something very good. Maybe they're a doctor, private practice. Who knows? Maybe they're making mid six figures. They're doing very well for each other, for themselves. Sorry, there's a very good chance that came from the source of multiple avenues of luck, of a chance meeting of someone, of really, some good guesses on a tough test in college, who knows, but they still put in the effort. They still sat down and did the work they had to. If they didn't, they would not be there. If there was no action related to what they were doing, they would not be there. And so it's kind of this thing where you need to be like aware of it. And by being aware of it, you can be a bit more humble with it. And if you can do that and you can understand that, then you can at least appreciate and understand other people's plight, while still simultaneously at least feeling a little confident in yourself that like, yeah, I still did it though. Yeah, I still did it. Like, I have the hours logged of doing that work. Maybe you're just naturally talented at something. Maybe you're just generally good at something. I mean, hell, I mean, even me, right? Like, I was born with this voice. Many people say this voice is good for YouTube because it has a solid radio drawl or whatever you want to call it. I've literally went to tournaments at Warhammer or met random people in the like bars or something who have told me I have a radio voice. Did I work on this radio voice? No, not in the sense of the actual inflection, but I did work on my way of speaking. I worked really hard to remove the uhs and the ums and the like California syndromes from my speech. And it's something that took me many years to work on. So did I work and create this voice? No, but I did work on it and I made the cadence. I think really at the end of the day, there is this feeling that people have not earned what they have or feel guilty in having what they have because two reasons. It's either because the people who also have it abuse it or are problematic, and therefore you feel as if you need to rationalize it, or two, because there is such a level of there's no storybook ending to it. We're so ingrained in online stuff. We're so ingrained in stories and social media and the underdog tale that you crave it. There was an old talk about like Blade Runner 2049 is an example of like just this hero who doesn't matter, right? Officer K. And the fact that he is just, like this lonely person. And there's people who look at that and they almost kind of like want that to be their lives. Because I think in the absence of feeling, even a negative emotion is something. In fact, I found some people who have the same feeling. I know people who have been on anti-anxiety medications, antidepressants, things of that nature. And the way it works, of course, is that it numbs the severities of both sides. It makes the highs lower and the lows higher. And because of that, a lot of them end up stop taking that medication because it just numbs those senses to a way that feels unnatural. Because feeling pain is better than feeling nothing. And I think maybe, just maybe, and this is a theory, that with the sheer volume of dopamine and serotonin that is being shoved into our faces so often, with the level of doom scrolling on social media, the next hit, there is like a callousness that is created of the mind. People become less empathetic to others. People become far more bitter and uncaring in general because though that has just been hardened to this like kind of callous method, and to a point where if you struggle, if you suffer in some kind of way, you will naturally feel the benefit of both. One, you felt something, and two, you've earned it. Anything good in your life is now rationalized. This is my underdog story. This is the story I'm telling, the feeling I want to have. Here is why I'm doing so well for myself, is because I really put it in. I had a bad father. I had a poor growing up. I had these types of things. That's why I deserve it. And those of us who don't feel weird about it. That was, in fact, the entire point of, I mentioned this before, that was the entire point of Uncharted 4. Uncharted 4, the best Uncharted game, crazy enough. The main villain, Rafe, his entire point was not for the money. He was already extremely rich, but he was born with the silver spoon. And he knew he had the silver spoon, and he hated it. And he wanted to make a real name for himself. He did this. It was his blood, his grime, his intentions. And that was the whole point. He earned this for the first time. And granted, he was a dickhead, but that was the whole plot, was that feeling. And so even though he was, an asshole and, not a good guy, I did relate to that a little bit. And I had to learn that. And I think it was around like 22, 23 years old is when I started to kind of come to terms with it. As you get older and your brain fully develops, you start to kind of understand things a little bit better here and there, and from there, you start to just realize the fact that yeah, this is just life. This is just life. The has and the has nots. That is literally just how life goes. If you put some of your effort as a has to help the has nots, excellent. In fact, there's a really good there's a good statement to be made that the has could have a little less and the has nots could have a little more. But at that point, it's up to those that have to help. Not entirely, of course, but it feels good. I mean, that's something that I like to do sometimes. I work for myself, don't get me wrong, and I like money. I like my life. I want to do great things with that money in my life. I want to travel. I want to see things. I want to have a wonderful time, buy new video games, buy a big TV to play those video games. I have my vanity. I have my vanity. I have my level of consumerism that, could be less. I would like it to, but that is who I am. But at the same time, I like to run charity organizations. So I like to donate when I can. I don't always get the opportunity to, but I like to when I can. Obviously there's a large amount of just giving assistance to those who, smaller streamers and things like that, talking to folks. I mean, I occasionally get messages asking for small, like little shout outs for friends, and I'll do those just pro bono because it's kind of fun, not always. I mean, I have a busy schedule, but it feels good sometimes. I have employees, but I try my best to treat them better than they would in other jobs. I try to give them benefits and try to remind them that they are not here. They're not living to work. They are working to live. And I find that important. I don't want them spending a decade of their life working for me and not feeling fulfilled, because that's not the point of life. The point of life is to be fulfilled. And eventually, at some point in time, that's kind of also a thing I realized, where I only have so many years in this world. I only have so much time. I'd like to just do my best to, enjoy it. Where I came from doesn't really matter as much as the person I am now. And, focusing on it too much is just a way to make me hard on myself. And I don't need that. I don't want that. I know I grew up well and I'm still doing well. And at the end of the day, that's a good thing. That is a good thing. Struggling is good for the mind and good for the brain, but living a rough life is not. And, at the end of the day, it feels kind of silly because I'm sure many of the viewers here, those of you who have kids, you might feel a somewhat similar thing, that you might have, grown up poorly in some kind of way, but you want to give a hallmark childhood for your kids. I mean, they're going to struggle somewhat, but you still want them to maybe do better than you did, in a way, have a better childhood than you had. And so, anyway, I will never feel bad for my parents succeeding in what they sought out to do. I almost feel like it's insulting to them to pretend like I struggled more. It's an indictment of their ability as parents. Hopefully that helped. It's a bit of a long one, a lot of randomness in that one. A lot of points to touch on. There's so much. I'd be very curious to hear about if anyone has any philosophy degrees or stuff like that, if you can kind of talk a bit more about this phenomenon. Maybe you can put into words better than I was able to put into words here. But thank you again so much for your time. Thank you for listening. And I'll see you next week, this time on time. Have a good one.